Hey everybody, I'm Dan Fredenberg, and this is For Real Estate is a Scam. I'm joined today with Lauren Cadillac. She's a licensed attorney. Do you want to introduce yourself a little bit more, Lauren?
Sure. I'm Lauren Cadillac. I am a licensed attorney in the state of Texas. My practice involves real estate, probate, estate planning, taxation. Basically, if you're a normal person or it touches the dirt, I do it. And I'm really excited to share this one scam with you today.
All right. Yeah, I'm excited as well. The whole premise of realestateisascam.com, I've got a digital security background, so I'm always looking for vulnerabilities, in spots that most people aren't looking for. And so I decided that if I'm going to have a conversation with anybody, I'd rather get in front of the issue and say, it's like, I saw this and it's not a level playing field. Lauren and we got on like a house on fire as soon as the topic of judges came on, and the amount of latitude they have. And I'm like, holy smokes, and that's a huge part of the uncontrollable bit of real estate, I believe. But I'm really excited again to have you here. So what have you got as far as real estate scams? And we gotta remember to say, it's like, what do full timers do to avoid that particular problem? So what you got for us today?
Okay, so I only practice law in Texas. Okay, I don't have a license anywhere else, just FYI. This is a scam that occurred in Texas, but I imagine it could happen elsewhere. Um, my so this, let's say owner, we'll call him owner, bought a house that needed flipping. Okay, so it needed repairs. He knew, it wasn't in great condition. No one's going to live in it right away, whatever. So owner begins the flip and gets it almost done, but then money kind of slows down, and you know how flips go. Like, it's always more expensive than you anticipated, and all his savings is in this. So the house is livable, but it's not. I mean, we wouldn't move in, right? Like, it still has some minor, it still needs some finish work and whatnot. But because funds have run dry, owner puts a for sale sign in front of it.
Mhm.
Okay, because he's like, I can't do this. Flipping is not for me, whatever it may be. Um, a few weeks later, owner drives by, and not only is the for sale sign missing, there is someone and their furniture inside house. Yeah,
Squatting.
not really.
No, they're not
Because
even squatting. Oh no.
squatting implies that the person knew it was empty and moved in on like their own accord, right?
Hmm.
Well, owner went to the person that's living in the house, is like, yo, this is my house, you can't live here. And that person shows owner a lease. And owner's like, how'd you lease the house without me? I'm the owner. That is not my, signature. So tenant, we'll call them, tells a story. The for sale sign said for lease.
Mm.
And when she called, some man who was familiar with the property had access to the lockbox, which makes me believe that he was like someone who knew one of the contractors or something, right?
Hmm.
Because he had access to the lockbox. He tells her it's 2,500 a month, or whatever the number was, 2,500 a month, $2,500 security deposit. We can get you moved in right away. Here's the lease. He tours her around the house, the whole nine, right? He
Mm.
takes, he signs the lease, he takes the security deposit, he takes the first month's rent, and he disappears. And so tenant is like, owner, this house has issues, and I'm trying to find that guy to address those issues. Of course there's issues, right? It wasn't fully done, right? Like, owner's like, yeah, I know, I was selling it as is and not fully repaired. So tenant is now trying to reach realtor, guy with the
Mhm.
key box. He's gone.
Yeah.
So I come in and I look him up. Turns out realtor is using a real estate company name in a totally different state. That company does not exist in Texas. It
Mm.
is in like North Carolina or something.
Okay.
So I went ahead and let that guy know, the owner of that company, like someone's using your name. But through the process, what I found out is this happens all the time, especially on like flips and investment properties, because the guy who had access to the key box, right? The guy who showed the property, the realtor guy,
Yeah.
he knew it was empty. And he knew owner didn't live there, and he knew owner was only there every so often, whatever. In this case, it was like he would drive by once a month or once every 2 months. He knew that he could get it leased out in time and never get caught. And he makes $5,000. All he has to do is show up one time, show the house one time, sign, have a lease, fill it out. It is not hard, and then sign it, take the money. He made $5,000 for 30 minutes worth of, fraud, basically. So then owner now has a tenant who hasn't paid, who doesn't actually have a lease. And he has to, in Texas, give a 30-day notice because there's no valid lease. So now she's getting 30 days, but also tenant is like, where am I going to go? Right? Like, I just gave this person $5,000. I don't have money for a new security deposit.
Yeah.
If owner has to evict tenant, now tenant has an eviction on her record that she shouldn't have. Right? It's just victims all around. Right. And to me, that was like the boldest scam I have ever heard of. The boldest.
Right.
And of course, realtor's name was like Jim Smith, or like the most common name humanly possible, right? So there's no way to find the dude. His phone was a drop phone. You can't. There's nothing. He's gone. He gets the money and just disappears.
So the first thing that comes to my mind is let's talk about what the tenant could have done, and all that I can really think of is record every single conversation that they have while you're doing it, and because like other than that, there's not really much, right?
Well, I think so. At least in Texas, we have county appraisal districts, and they are not a place to verify ownership. However, you can go to the appraisal district website, put in that address, and if the names don't match, you need to ask the question, right? So if she had done that, she would have seen owner's name and not Jim Jones or whatever realtor claimed his name was. And then she could say, well, let me see your agreement between owner and you and your brokerage to make sure it's valid. But she didn't do that. So in Texas, I think you would go to the county appraisal district. If the names don't align, ask why and require physical evidence. If they say, oh, it's because of this. Okay, cool. Show me physical, tangible evidence that it is because of that.
Okay. So, and I'm just thinking here about like some other things, which is in Texas, do they do credit checks when you apply to rent an apartment?
I think so. It depends. If you go to an apartment that is part of the Texas Apartment Association or TAA, they absolutely will. And they have a standard lease and all that. This was a house though, right? So this is a private owner leasing their house to a private tenant. And folks don't always do a credit report. And if you're the tenant and you maybe have like kind of messed up credit, the fact that they're not going to do a credit report is actually a benefit to you, right? So you're going to look right past that as a red flag. You're going to be like, yes.
Right. Because that's the thing, like I'm a commercial real estate guy, and one of the things that's kind of funny about apartment investing is I find very few of the investors have actually lived in an apartment before. And if you're in Taiwan, especially in Taipei, like a condo, for that can fit a family at all, it's going to be like $500,000 to start, so it's like living in a house, it's not practical for the vast majority of people. But that's I've been in all of these different apartments, and as far as like credit checks or like checking their background, I've never done any of that.
Really?
Ever. Yeah, I've never checked out, it's like, oh, is this guy actually the owner of this apartment? It's just, okay, here, contract, all right.
I can see that for apartments, right? But again, this was a house. And I usually tell people, like, if I have a client who's facing an eviction, I'll tell them, go rent a house.
Yeah.
because a private landlord is usually more willing to make exceptions and that kind of stuff because they want to get it rented out and they can meet you and there's like a relationship, right? I have a
Hmm.
lot of folks like in the US, there's a lot of people with terrible medical debt, right?
Yeah.
And an apartment, they're not going to look over that when they see your credit report. But a landlord, he probably has medical debt too, right? Like we're all Americans, we all have this. You're not just a number, you're a human being. And
Yeah.
so I think that's why in this scam, the tenant was even more vulnerable, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
Definitely.
if she could qualify under traditional rules, she probably would have done that.
Right. Right. And I suppose the landlord could still, like take the loss and put it against other rental earnings. So, at least they're not being taxed on that money that they didn't end up getting. Because that just sucks. But wow, that's another bright and cheery one that there's really not a whole lot you can do. But I suppose the going to the landlord side, smart devices would probably be the ticket. Having something that is attached to like a SIM card that
Mm-hmm.
does, like maybe every 10 minutes it takes a picture, or every 5 minutes it takes a photo and sends it to you. So if you see people walking around in there, then something's up. But
Or even less complicated, you get like a keypad with a code and you give the same code, to the people, everyone who's going to be there on Tuesdays and Thursdays gets this code and Wednesdays and Fridays get this code. And then when those people are done working, you change the code,
mhm.
right? And if he had a code that changed often, they would have never had a chance to get into the key. And without a key, they can't really be the landlord, right? Like if I'm
Mhm.
saying I'm the landlord and the tenant wants to see the property and I can't unlock it to get them in, they're going to walk away. But because this was like a lockbox, it had the same key, it had been out there for months, every construction worker and their mother had used it, that opened him up to that vulnerability. So I don't even think you need to go as far as like, I don't like connecting the house to the cloud, but a rental
Mhm.
house is fine. You could connect to the cloud, do the photographs, but if you just like change the code relatively often, you would
Mhm.
probably resolve that issue.
Wow. Wow. Far up. Well, that's really amazing. I really look forward to having you on as a regular guest here on realestatesascam.com. The best way to get a hold of you, though, it's LinkedIn, and you have some websites too, right? Where,
I
where are the
do.
best ways to get a hold of you?
Yep. So Cadillac is spelled with one L, not like the car, but like the car with one L. So everything, all social media, my website is cadillaclaw.com. And social media is just Cadillac Law, Cadilaclaw.
Excellent, excellent. And you got your YouTube channel, so that means make sure that you subscribe to her channel and subscribe to mine, because if you don't, then you obviously want us to spend all this money on production and instead of YouTube paying for it, which
That's right.
I'd be ashamed if that was my attitude, that it's like, you know what? These guys should just pay for it all. YouTube, they should keep their money. They need to do it for YouTube things, I
No,
guess.
no, that would be absolutely terrible. I do
Right.
also have a video on my YouTube about deed fraud because the way Texas does deed recordation, deed fraud is actually like really rampant and prevalent. So if
Hmm.
people are on the big real estate scam kick right now, you can check out that video that addresses the deed fraud issue, which we will talk about in another real estate is scam, I promise.
Excellent, excellent. Well, you guys take care. Make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you around on Real Estate is a Scam.